Cadams Tech here. In today's video, I wanted to tell you all what you need in order to become a junior developer today. This video is going to give you a quick rundown and tell you everything you need in order to do this. But first, if you're new to my channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Share this with a friend or family member that you know is interested in development. It'll really help push my videos out to a wider audience, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys. So the first thing I would learn, and this is still relevant today just as it was when I first started, is start off with HTML, right? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is essentially the structure, the skeleton of the web page, right? You might have a header of the web page. Use some HTML for that. You might have the body, use some HTML for that, and you might have a footer where you have some links in the bottom, contact us, etc. Use HTML for that, right? And where I would go to learn this is, I'll put links down below. What I did was I used John Duckett's HTML and CSS book, and I went cover through cover for this book. I'm not saying everyone needs to do that, but I want it to be thorough, right? So what I did was I opened up the book, I had a notebook where I wrote notes in, and then I had my laptop where I practiced and I tried out these different concepts, right? So let's say I'm learning about an H1 tag, right? Which is the largest text tag. It's usually used for the top of the page for one of the main headers, right? I would write it out by hand after reading in the book and reading what it does. I would write it out by hand, like opening tag, H1, closing tag, text between, closing H1 tag. And then I would read it, understand it in the book. It just helps it sink in, right? And then I would open up my laptop and I would just write in the index.html file, H1, and this put some text like hello world, right? Double click the HTML file, index.html file, it'll launch in the browser and you can see it, right? You don't even necessarily need to do it the index.html way. You can do other things. You can literally Google this, type JS fiddle into Google, or you could say HTML parser into Google, or HTML editor into Google, and you can practice it right there within the live editor and see it reflect on the web page. You don't even need to even create an index.html necessarily file when you're learning. So don't spend too much time on HTML. Don't spend a year on just learning HTML, but I would say spend a couple weeks, maybe an hour each day, learning some HTML, learning the different concepts. And the main ones I'll just go through really quick that you want to get in is H tags, H1 through 6, right? H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. You want to learn what a div is. That's how like you can structure, it's like boxes for the web page. You can put stuff in a box, which is a div, a container, and then you can put other elements within there. You want to learn about spans. That's like inline divs basically. You want to learn about, I'm trying to think of the most commonly used ones for you, so save you a little bit of time so you don't have to go over every single thing. You want to learn about P tags, which is like a paragraph text tag. You want to learn about, let's see, what else? Those are really the most common, but also you want to learn about inputs. So the input tags. You want to learn about selects. You want to learn about, so select options. You want to learn about, this is just off the top of my head, so if I'm missing some, I'm missing some, but I'm just trying to give you some guidance as to which tags to focus on first. You want to learn about, those are honestly the most common. You can learn about like radio buttons and things like that. But if you focus on what I just said, that's like 80% of the way there for sure. Anything outside of that, you'll just use every now and then. Oh, A tags, anchor tags, and yeah. And then aside from those, I just had to double check myself because I just did that spur of the moment, naming out different elements. But head, body, and footer as well, because those are the primary 3 sections of the page. I would also learn those too. So if you do what I just said there, you're probably about 90% of the way there. So focus on those things, get those under your belt, and once you have those, I would start getting to step number 2. All right, so number 2, the second thing that you should move on to, in my opinion, and also don't spend too much time on this because you can really get sucked into this. But if you see yourself specializing in web design, then I think it'll be okay to spend additional time on this. But that is CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. The reason it says it's pronounced cascading is because basically anything, so if you have a selector up above and you're selecting something and then you do the same selector down below, it will override what's up above. So it cascades, right? So basically spend some time with CSS, learn some of the basic, most common selectors. You could probably just Google what these selectors are. And then I think you'll be good. I'm not going to name every single one because I think there's quite a bit, but you can literally select every single element. So you can go as far as saying like, so the P tag or the H1 tag that we spoke about for HTML, well, how you would select that in CSS is you would say like H1, open, closing, curly braces, and inside of these curly braces, you would say like color, colon, and then you would say like red or something like that, right? And then that'll make the text red. And then you could do different things like you can style the fonts, you can change the sizes of things, you can position. So CSS is really good for positioning things on the page, right? So I like to think of CSS as similar to how I said HTML is the skeleton of the web page. CSS is like the skin and the hair and the styling, you know, the clothes. And it's like, so what you do with CSS is you can style it, you can color it, you can change the text, you can position it on the page, different things. So like, hey, I want this thing over here. I want this thing over there. I want this thing to be this big. I want that thing to be this big. And that's what CSS will do. It's the layout, it's the styling. It brings the page some nice aesthetics, right? You can handle images through it, things of that nature. So the next tip, right? The next thing you want to focus on is JavaScript. This is where you actually start getting into programming. When we talk HTML and CSS, that's coding. That isn't programming, that's coding. A lot of people will get this mixed up. They'll say, oh, I know 2 different languages. I know HTML, or I know 2 different programming languages, because they are languages. HTML is language. I know 2 different programming languages, HTML and JavaScript. Well, that's not a programming language. HTML is a coding language, or a language you could say. CSS is a coding language, or a language you could say. And JavaScript is a programming language, right? There's a big difference. Programming languages will allow you to add a bunch of logic to things. It'll allow you to create functions and send and update databases and things like that. CSS and HTML does not allow you to do that. All right, JavaScript now. So this is the third one. This is where you're starting to become a developer. Ooh. This is where you start crossing into the territory of being a developer, not just a designer. HTML and CSS is encompassed in development, but if all you know is HTML and CSS, then you're essentially a designer, right? This is where you start crossing that developer territory. So, JavaScript, right? JavaScript, guys. JavaScript is probably the world's most popular programming language right now, and I think that's because it's the only programming language that you can use on the front end. You can do other things on the front end, like WASM, which is up and rising, which I think will allow you to use other programming languages on the front end, but basically that will transpile down into JavaScript. There's other languages where you can use the language and then it'll transpile it to JavaScript, but essentially just using the language and the browser understanding it, JavaScript, right? JavaScript now you can actually use on the front end as well as the back end. So you can use it on the back end with a platform called Node, right? That'll allow you to write JavaScript within it. But other than that, we're talking more about the front end right now, right? So HTML, CSS, let's learn some JavaScript. Let's start bringing these pages to life. What JavaScript will allow you to do is it will allow you to validate input. So if you type out some forms, like say you're ordering a pizza or something, and you miss a field and you hit the submit button, it'll alert you like with a red text like, hey, fill out this field, right? That's JavaScript doing that. If you fill out everything successfully, you hit the send button and it sends that information somewhere, JavaScript is helping collect that information, manipulate it into the way you want, and send it off, right? Very, very powerful once you start getting into programming. What should you learn in JavaScript first? Well, that's a good one. JavaScript is fairly vast, but if you want to get up and running with some JavaScript fundamentals, I would say these days, because there used to be var, right? VAR, and then you can assign a variable to var. I would say focus on const and let, right? Touch var, understand what var is, and move on from var really quickly. Like learn about it, use it. So quick way you can do is var and say first equals, and then do an open quote, your name, close quote, and then go console.log, open parenthesis, name or first or whatever I said, close parenthesis, then you can see it outputted into the browser, right? Quick way you can do this is you can go to JS Fiddle and put it in the JavaScript section, or you can open up your Chrome DevTools and then click on console. So you could do Command Option I on a Mac and then click on the console tab, and then you could just type it directly in there. Or I think on Windows, you can press the F12 key, it'll open up the console, press the console tab, type what I just said right in there, and you can see it come to life. Simple, quick one would probably be console.log, open parenthesis, open double or single quote, either way, hello, space, world, closing single or double quote, make sure they match on both sides, close parenthesis, press enter, you should see it output. That's your first little JavaScript task that I have for you. Concepts, learn about var, then after that, don't think about it again, don't even use it. Nobody uses it these days, unless you're working for like a government or doing some really old school stuff, stay away from that. Use const and let, right? So learn the difference between const and let. Const means constant, means it's not gonna change, high level. You can assign something to a constant and then you can't mutate it, you can't manipulate it, you can't change it later into something else. Let will allow you to do that, right? So then learn about if-else statements, right? So if-else statements, that's conditionals. Learn about switch case statements. Learn about creating a for loop. Learn about creating a while loop. Learn about functions. Learn about, I'm just trying to think right off the top of my head about the most commonly things that I use. So sorry, I'm not trying to bore you guys, but these are things that I use every single day, pretty much on a weekly basis, these things that I'm talking about. Then you may want to get into different function styles, or high order functions is called. So learn about map, filter, reduce, similar to looping. These are looping mechanisms. Learn about arrays. That's kind of ties into the map, filter, reduce. Learn about arrays. Learn about how to manipulate arrays. Learn how to get the different indexes and the different items within the arrays. The arrays are like a container. And what else? Yeah, I mean, I think that almost covers a good portion of what you need. I'm probably forgetting some big things, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head at the moment. But just learn what you can there. JavaScript, very, very valuable. So spend some time there, learn it, you won't regret it. So those are the core things. The things that I just told you, you'll be from 0 to 100 real quick with these things, right? If you learn these concepts, you're going to be on your way to becoming a really good developer, right? Learn these things and then start building some projects with them. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? Start building some little simple pages with them. Start making these pages look good. Try and play around with form submission. Hey, let's submit this form. Try and play around with animations and stuff. So like you hover over the H1 tag, have it do something with JavaScript. Have it, you can even use JavaScript to change the color, similar to CSS, right? I think that uses the CPU instead of the GPU, I want to say. One of them uses the CPU, one of them uses the GPU, but that's a nerdy topic. That's going too deep. I'm just trying to give you guys high level which concepts I would focus on for each technology, because I don't want you to waste too much time going down rabbit holes, even though this can be good. But if you're trying to land your first dev job as a junior, I think it's best to focus on these concepts, build a couple of things with them, and move on. Don't spend too much time getting hung up over a function or something like that, or getting overwhelmed. Just focus on these concepts, build some quick little things with them, utilize them, understand what they do, and move on. Okay. If something really trips you up, if a certain concept really trips you up, don't let it make you get discouraged and just quit altogether. That's another huge tip I would say. Just move on. Just focus on something else. If it's really so hard that you can't grasp that certain concept, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Just move on to another topic and have some fun with that other topic, right? And then revisit it, right? I'm not saying don't learn it all together. I'm saying take a break from it. You'll find that sometimes if you're stuck on something, you take a break, and then you come back, things start clicking. It's like your subconscious mind will work these things out. You'll come back to it with renewed eyes, with a renewed brain, and it'll click much better for you. Okay. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? Now, you can either just build out some web pages, different layouts, different styles, use some JavaScript for some certain things on the front end if you want, and become a front-end developer, right? You can get right in, show a couple of projects that you built as a front-end developer. You can even try and build some static pages. At this point, you can either try and ask some friends or family members if they need a simple basic page, and try and don't bite off more than you can chew. Try and make it just a single page, not like multiple pages or anything like that, and try and build it out for them so you can add it to things that you can show potential employers, right? This is where you can do more of the designy route. If you're going just front end, they're probably going to expect you to have some design skills. So learn how to edit images, learn how to use a little bit of Photoshop, learn either Adobe Illustrator or Figma, and these are things that you can use to mock up some websites the way it will look, and call it that. I mean, yeah, I would say you're on the front end track. You're just going to become a front end developer, right? And then if you want to become a front end developer, and that's what you have your heart set on, learn a front end framework now. So you know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Start learning a couple of other tools that will really help you in your career and help you really get in a good job, right? So I would learn two different things, right? And if you're going the front end route, I would learn a CSS library of some sort. And this might be something like Bootstrap, Material UI, Tailwind, Ant Design. I've used all of these, but you only need one, right? Look at each of these. I'll try and link them in this video. Once again, yeah, Bootstrap, Tailwind, Material UI, Ant Design. These have different styles. It allows you to copy some code, some HTML, CSS code, paste it, and boom, wow, that looks amazing already, right out of the gate. But you need to learn these HTML and CSS skills so that way you can manipulate this code and transform it into the way that you want. It gives you a good foundation, a good jumping off point, but you still need to know how to change these things so you can position them on the page, so you can change the colors, so you can make it your own, right? But it's very pretty right out of the gate. So learn a CSS library, and then learn a front-end JavaScript framework, right? So these are things like React, Vue, or Angular, and there's others, but these are the popular ones at the moment. I've gone down the React route. I've been using React for 7 years now, and I've tried to harness and become an expert at React. I've literally, you don't have to do this. I went without doing this for several years, but I literally went to the website, React site, wrote out every single concept that it had, and I crossed each one off one by one as I learned about them, and I actually used them in code, and I understood what they did. Because I wanted to leave no stone unturned with becoming really good with React, right? I wanted to become an expert at React. I learned about different ways to structure the React code, etc. That's a whole nother story. But basically, learn the basics of JavaScript framework, right? So at this point, you'll know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, maybe some Photoshop skills, maybe some Figma or Illustrator skills, so you can lay out a mock-up a site without having to use your hand or a piece of paper and a pen, right? So learn some type of system where you can mock up what the website will look like, will be very valuable. And then learn CSS framework, like we discussed, and then learn a JavaScript framework, like we discussed. If you do that, and you have like 1 or 2 projects that you've built for a friend or family member, or for your own self, that's something impressive, right? I I would start moving into this next thing, which is networking, right? Start going to meetups, start talking to people who are doing this already professionally as a career, right? Start talking to them and start forming connections. And then they might tell you, you might be surprised, they might say, hey, you should apply to my company. I think you'd be a good fit. And then apply to their company, right? List on your resume that you have, that you're a freelance, right? And that you've built projects for clients, and then show those during the interview process. All right, so do that. That's the front end track, right? All right, so that's pretty much what you need to be a junior developer. You don't need to be super crazy. You don't need to be an expert at any of these things. You don't need to be an expert at HTML. You don't need to be an expert at CSS, JavaScript, Node, whatever you choose. You don't need to be an expert at any one of these things. You just need basic knowledge. You just need to be able to do some of it, have some sort of proficiency, enough to get into the door as a junior developer, right? I know you guys can do it for sure. I believe in you guys. I know you can do it. So do it. If you have any sort of interest in this, please don't give up and keep trying. For me and for yourself and for your family. Please try. Don't give up. Because that would pain me if you're really interested in this and you give up. It's not that long of a road to get your first dev job. You can get in. You can do it. If this video was helpful to you, please share it with a friend, family member, or anyone you know that's interested in development. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. It'll help push this video out to a wider audience. It'll be super helpful to me. It'll be helpful to others too, more importantly. It'll be helpful to others. And that's part of me trying to give back to the community, is making these videos. I haven't made a single penny from any of my YouTube videos. So that's it. Cadams Tech here. I will be posting more videos very soon, and I hope to see you guys soon. Leave any comments that you have down below. Be really helpful. And see you guys next time.